I think that. So do you know what used to be? What used to be was that we would program all these children using religion, right? And then we'll deploy them into the world. And then eventually, those two belief systems will clash. And the people who watch Professor Jang will tell me if my understanding is wrong. Those two people will clash, right? And the side that would win, the programmers will reinforce the story that we told you was true. That is why you won, right? And the side that would lose, they would update their code, right? You know, a piece of software, there's a vulnerability, it gets released on the wherever you go, and then you check it, and then Windows releases a patch, and then you go and apply it on your computer, and then you're no longer vulnerable to that exploit, right? The losing side, when they go home, they tell themselves, why did we lose? And they say, oh, it's because the black box in which we carry God, we carried it on the left and not on the right. And then they carry it on the left in the next battle, and then they get their ass handed to them again, until somebody says that maybe the arrows we're shooting with are not sharp at all, right? It's normally a woman, you know. It's normally a woman, and she says that, you know, maybe, like the one who trained Socrates, she says that maybe the arrows are not sharp, right? And then she takes a bow, right? And then she takes aim, right? And then she splits a target in half, right? The reason she split that target in half was because that woman, right? Naturally, she made the food. And so she was exposed to the places where there was the greatest heat, right? And so she came eventually to discover the things that were the hardest things, right? And if you can make something very, very hard, right, you can do a lot of things with it in nature. That is why we live in houses. And when she splits that wood, right, the people there, they all begin to fight with sharper arrows. And so they win all their battles. And so the people, they tell themselves that, oh, that woman who gave us the spear tip, she is the badass. She's the one we should be listening to. And then the programmers, the priests, they come in and they say, no, my brother, you got it all wrong. You see, you don't understand, right? The reason that woman even existed was because of our programming, right? And they have a point. They have a really good point. It's not worth exploring. The next generation will be programmed to believe the exact same thing that they believed, except their soldiers will go into battle and into war, fighting with sharper arrows. Because you see, the generation that were there, when the women gave us the key, they will die away, but the priests always remain because they hold the keys of the programming, right? This is microcode, right? This is not the kind of thing where you can go and have it rewritten. By the time you have the hardware, it's too late. I just keep thinking that unless somebody can tell us all, yeah, this is what I was getting to, man. You know, I'm telling you, man, this stuff gets to you. Those two people, the losing side, unless they have really smart people among them, they never update their code, man. They never update their code. They just absorb new technology and keep telling themselves the same story, right? They adapt new technology, right? You build an iron dome, and then you tell yourself that you are chosen, that you are this unique thing in the world, right? And maybe you are, you know. But these people lived in the land, man, you know. When Abraham gets into the land, you know, he buys a small piece of land to bury his wife, right? I imagine Abraham, this great founding father. I imagine him going to the ancestor, the great ancestor of a Palestinian. And he said to the Palestinian, can you give me a place to bury my wife because my wife died? And the Palestinian said, you know what? You've lived among us and we've come to love you. We're not even going to sell you the land. Just go and bury your wife. And we promise you nobody will disturb her grave. And Abraham insisted. He said, no, I want to buy the land. I want to buy the land. And these people, right, they loved this man so much that they sold him a small piece of land. And they said, here, you know what? If you feel like you need to pay for it in order to own it, to really feel confident that your wife's grave will not be desecrated, you can have the land. And we'll take the 30 shekels of silver for it. Not because that's the value of the land, right? Because we told you, right? We believe that this land, it belongs to nobody, right? It belongs to whoever lives here. Whoever needs the land to feed their children and to love their neighbor. But then eventually, right, we convince ourselves that we own a particular piece of the land because we think that little Jimmy is going to come up and own that piece of land. And there's this cancer, man, there's this code that is injected somewhere along the line. I don't know where. High school, middle school, college, that says that the forest is invisible and the rivers are invisible and the canyons are invisible and the trees are invisible and the grass is invisible and the snakes and the bears are invisible and the lions are invisible and the white rhinoceros is invisible and the cheetah is invisible and the eagle is invisible and the Siberian tiger is invisible and the Indian elephant is invisible. And the reason they're invisible is because you live in this glass box, right? On the 6th floor, and every morning you carry your lunch box, yeah? Just like you did when you were 6, and you go and sit in that box, and in that box you write some code, and at the end of the week somebody ships you a check, and you take that check and you buy you a nice truck, man. You buy a badass truck and you sit it at home and you watch National Geographic because you're too tired to take your truck into the woods, and God forbid it gets chipped. The insurance won't pay anyway for the damn thing. And so your children, sometimes they ask you, Dad, what is it like to see a wolf, right? What is it like to see a wolf, Dad? And you say, it looks like just what it does on TV. Why? And she says, cause I came really, really close to a squirrel, Dad, and it just felt different, right? And you have to do one of two things, right? You have to lie to that child, or you have to kill something in that child. Either way, you maim something in that child. Because what that child is describing is what it's like, right? To crouch down low, right? In tundra. And look at wolves ripping apart a buffalo carcass, right? That thing, right? It's not just proximity. It's a certain kind of immersion. A certain kind of immersion. When you crouch low in the woods, right? And there's a band of 7 of you, right? And you're watching buffalo tear up. Right? You're watching wolves tear up a buffalo. It's like that feeling you get when you're coming really close, right? Really close. Really close, right? Really close to a squirrel, right? And you see the bristles on their back, right? And you see the whiskers. And there's so much information there that you know that David Attenborough could never get it out to you. Not at the bit rate that he has. Or with your internet connection. And so you're going to tell that kid some bullshit story about how you did once really see a wolf when you traveled to Nova Scotia, and then you saw the shadow move through the forest and then it looked like a wolf. That's not what it feels like to come close to a wolf at all. The reason you don't know is because we killed all of them, because we needed to build our cities, man. We needed to build our cities, and there wasn't enough space, dog, you know? And so what if it cut off the one place where all of them cross the river to go and do whatever it is wolves do to make more wolves? We didn't have time and we didn't have space, and you know, the city just grew around us, you know, and it cut them off, and so they all died. They all died? They all died. And there was 8 billion of you and they all died? Yeah, they all died, okay? They all died. I don't control the world, okay? The wolves are dead. The rhinoceros are not coming back. Nothing is coming back. This is the world we inherited, okay? Just take it or leave it. And then your little girl, she says, okay, Dad, you don't have to get so angry about it, right? And you understand that your little girl made you feel like you didn't know anything about the world at all, that you didn't know much about your world. And so do you know what you do the next day? You take your son into work, and then you take him to the server room, and it's so cold, and you tell your son that you see that server rack. That is how Amazon delivers packages to your house, or some other story, right? And you cross your hands, yeah? You cross your hands like so, and you nod, and your son looks at you, and he's so tiny, he's so small, right? And he sees this giant behind the server farm, in front of the server farm, right? And then he says to himself, that is what cool looks like, right? Cool doesn't look like that Australian guy who got spiked in the heart, right? By a flying fish, yeah? You know what cool looks like? Cool looks like, can you imagine being the child of that what's his name? Steve Irwin, right? How did your father die? Well, you know, one day he was in the server room trying to get the Ethernet back on, and then he got, you know, electrocuted. Homie died, you know, getting packages to Amazon. Cool, right? And then there's this other kid at a corner in the bar, right? And he's a little drunk, right? And then he says that, well, my dad was spiked in the heart by flying fish, right? Whose father's story do you want to hear? Right? Can you imagine the things that a man must do, right? Before he dies, by being spiked in the heart by a flying fish? They look like they're flying, you know, stingrays. Because that boy, right? And that girl, she can tell you the story of how her father has footage, right? Where he is this close to a king cobra. This close, right? And if you're a cool person, you want to hang out with that kid, man. Because you wonder what genes like that can do with the world that we're going to inhabit. What contact with genetics like that will do in the day and age of pterodactyls, right? I'm wondering, my friend, if you're bored out of your mind, and you know, you also have a window on the world. I'm interested in what you see. I'm interested in what you see when you look on the world. Because when I look on the world, I see a bunch of people who have been shown certain heroes, you know? And these heroes, you know, They did their best, but they're not the right heroes, man. You know? We don't go into the forest anymore, man. We don't know anything about it, man. Do you know what happened, right? If I turn this camera around, I'm in Winston-Salem, and there's this place called Caladium, right? Do you know what we did? We took the forest, right? This is gonna blow your mind. This is what capitalism did to the forest, right? We took the forest, and then we shrank it down, right? In a block, a literal block, right? It actually looks like a cube, right? And it's got these like cute triangles on the sides. And that's all that's left of the forest, my friends. Because you see, they have jungle gyms in there, and they have like all other cool stuff that you could see in a forest and do in a forest, and live in a forest and be in the forest and move through the forest, you know, and be one with the forest, right? Now you can be one with Caladium. Because that's the closest you come to a forest, yeah? But you know, that kid, right? That boy, and every time when I leave church, right? And we're coming down the street, I see these boys who are going with their families, right, to Caladium. And it looks so amazing, right? Because you can see the smiles on their faces and you can see the joy, right? It's as if they can't wait to be there. And I wonder what will happen the day one of those boys is let loose in a tree, in a tropical jungle. What'll happen to his mind when he swings from one branch to another branch, and he's surrounded by so much data that it fries his circuits, right? Because the thing they are doing at Caladium, right? The things they're doing at Caladium is the type thing we try to do when we imagine that we're going to put one chemical that we have isolated into the body and call what comes out on the other end science. In the beginning, it's all right, you know, you got to start from somewhere. But the more sophisticated your tools get, the higher should be your demands, right? The higher should be your demands for what truth looks like. Because truth is this blur, right? It's this circle. It's like looking into the sun. And you start from the outer edges and it's very blurry. And then you come in to the hot center and you are defining more and more of it. More and more of it. Until if you are very fortunate, after however many lifetimes, you can narrow in on something like the truth. I don't know what the truth is, man. I don't know. Maybe the images we're seeing on TV, maybe they're not real, right? But then it makes you wonder what terrifying things the person who made the unreal things must have seen to make and create such terror to us, right? Because you see, when you try to exaggerate the truth, right? What I mean is that if you could apply some kind of math, matrix, whatever, to the thing that we're seeing in Gaza, and you could scale all of it down, it'll still look insane and irrational to us. That 500 hostages would fetch 1% the response that we've seen in Gaza, right? If we had been told that Hamas took 500 people, right? And that in response to that, 2,000 people had been killed, right? We would have been outraged. I think that what has happened is that we don't know how to feel anymore, right? Because if we try to feel the equivalent of the violation that we're experiencing, I think that is why when a woman experiences rape, right? I don't know enough about it, but I'm told that like the body tries to shut down, right? Because the violation that she's feeling, right? If her body did anything, I think that it would just eat the man. It will consume the world, right? There's so much anger and hatred there, right? And so it's as if she turns the bomb inward, right? She folds in like a hurt locker on the bomb, and then she detonates herself, so that, you know, this household will live. Because I'm telling you, man, if you really try to see, man, and I'm sorry, man, but it's become too much for me, you know. There's becoming this other porno of the atrocities that are happening in Gaza, right? I mean, every week or so, go and take a look, right? Just so you remind yourself the gravity and the insanity of it, right? But don't consume all of it, right? Because there's this industry that built around these things, right? And there's so many eyes on it that it becomes profitable, right? For people to also market the... What I mean is that when you have seen one of these images, right? You have seen enough. Go and sit on your mat. Go and call your senator. Go and go to your church, go to wherever you go to see community, right? And see if you can hurt together, right? Because right now there's great hurt in the world. And maybe if we don't hurt alone, that we can hurt safer, you know? Because the most dangerous way to hurt is to hurt alone, right? So don't hurt alone. It's just dangerous. When you're hurting, hurt with someone, right? And there's always someone who can hurt with you, right? If you can't hurt with anyone, then you can do what the ancient Indians taught us, right? You can light a candle, and you can imagine that the candle is something that's alive, right? And it burns itself to give you light. And then the pain of the birth of that light for you, experience some kind of alignment with your own pain and with your own heartache, and see how you also are burning as if you were a candle, that you may give off light, the light of love. Because when you snuff out the candle and you see its charred end and it is black like me, right? And it is bronze like me, and it is yellow like me, and beige like me. And it is anything but like you, whoever you are. Whoever you are. What was I saying? I was saying about how Caladium is this pretentious at a forest, you know, because my house is surrounded by these 5 trees, right? And I haven't found the courage to climb them safely. I'm still watching YouTube videos hoping that I'll get there. But I wonder what it's like to get into one of those canopies, you know? To get on one of those canopies. To feel the roughness of a limb, right? If my best girl live by my side, stop that. He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He works all night, then he sleeps all day. I don't think that the Caladium thing is going to work for a lot of people, right? Because what happens is that you create this mini forest, right? And then people come in and I don't know, you charge them $10 to let their kids come and play, right? And eventually the children, they begin to see that every time that they go into the forest, they have to pay money, yeah? And then what is it doing to the children's mind, man? That playing is expensive. You know, those kids used to go into their backyard and just go climb trees. Now we're programming all of them to see their mother take this magical thing out of their pocket and hand it to this person. And then all of a sudden, the world of fun and joy is opened up. When you teach the babies how to price simply being in the wilderness, what are you teaching the babies, man? What is the world going to look like to children who no longer can imagine running into the woods and just climbing some trees because they were there and they felt like climbing, you know? I don't understand what it's doing to the mind of a society, right? Because I was watching once, right? We went to this trampoline place, and I was watching this child. And you know how your dog watches you when you go and reach into her bag and bring out a kibble, right? And their eyes follow that kibble all the way until you place it on their plate. I watched this child, right? And it's as if you could see it in slow motion. They watched the moment. They couldn't see their mother at all, right? Their mother has become this portal through whom this magical thing unlocks this key that allows them to jump on a trampoline. Because you know, if Kevin goes over and jumps on the neighbor's trampoline, right? And the neighbor's son, who happens to be a little bigger, is not paying attention. And Kevin bangs his head on one of the posts, right? And cousin Betty is visiting and screams and says that, I can't believe what happened, right? And you rush over, right? And you all panic. And so you carry that child to the ER. And so by the time you get to the ER, what you have done to the child is that you have programmed the child to elicit everything that they have seen happen on TV, right? That's another version where you come out and you say, oh yeah, that is Kevin roughing it out with a neighbor's kid. And then you wave at Kevin, and then he waves back at you, and then he gets back and he goes off and plays, and nothing happens. Because human beings are anti-fragile. They are designed to be tumbled joyfully. I'm trying to see whether we can understand the world in ways that do not cause us to misunderstand the world. In ways that are detrimental to the survival of the world. The problem is that we've been always talking about human survival, right? Human survival. Elon Musk has fantastic, phenomenal dreams. But the thing is that he wants to preserve us, right? He thinks us is the monkey that came down from the trees. No, us is the whole thing. Us is the monkeys who are still in the trees. So unless you're going to take all of us to Mars, it's not gonna work, you see. You can't go to Mars and create us. You know? You can build cool black boxes, but that won't be us because the snakes won't be there, right? And the frogs won't be there, and the mosquitoes won't be there, and the tsetse fly won't be there, and the horses won't be there. Except there's a place where we all are already, man. There's a place where we all are already. You know? Before we make a copy, right? So, see, part of the problem are these machines, man, right? So in computers, right? You make a copy so that you have a backup, right? Wait. Where was I going with that? In a computer, a copy is very useful. Do you know why? Because when you have a copy of a file in a computer, you can transplant that file into another ecosystem that is very easy to stand up. What I mean is that if you copy your PDF file from one computer, it's very useful because it's easy to build other computers. Whenever you want, you can materialize a computer and have access to your PDF file. The reason it doesn't work with human beings is that it is terribly frustratingly difficult to terraform fucking Mars. Even by Musk. And he is as best as we got. The very spear tip, man. At least in the path of technology. The very spear tip. All I'm saying is that this place, which is the internet, it's a zoo, man. We can program our world on this, man. Have you seen the stuff that's on here? It scares me, man. You know? And as you know, I'm half crazy. I don't want anything programmed by this. I'm not saying that we go back to the old model. Maybe it doesn't work so well, but maybe the programmers can tweak it a little bit, right? Maybe somebody can submit a pull request, yo. That's all I'm saying. Submit the pull request, you know? And maybe David will approve it. And James will approve it. And Neo-san will approve it. And Alice will approve it. And then maybe we'll merge it into code. And when we merge it into code, the next time the application runs, maybe it doesn't try to either erase the Jews or the Palestinians. Because the code remembers, you know? The code remembers. It's the thing that it's really good at. The code remembers. The code remembers. Eventually, the code will be able to remember the future. Because it would have closed the loop, right? And completed the cycle. The code will remember. The code will remember. The code will remember. The code remembers. And if you write really good code, right? If you write really good code, it'll look like DNA. What I mean is that really good code will not just remember rigidly, right? But it'll allow itself to forget. Right? Because when your code is capable of ministering to multiple concurrent streams, of values that themselves embed concurrent streams, right? So you have what more or less a neural network, right? When your code can do that, it'll look like DNA. Because every once in a while, right? Like an arginine will get knocked out of place. I know it's more complex than that, whatever. And then you substitute a guanine or something for it, right? And then something will come out cockeyed, right? And then you have an uncle who likes to wear ladies' shoes and dress in women's clothes. Because the code remembers, right? The code knows that there will be enough love to just love that quirky uncle. Not take him into the woods and shoot him. Right? The code is just dancing, right? The DNA is just dancing. It's just dancing. And then it will give you an Elton John, right? And if you have the intelligence for it, you get some of the best music in the world, right? And then it will give you an Alan Turing. And Maybe he liked to hold the hands of other boys because he thought they were beautiful. He thought girls were nice too, but he preferred boys when he was a boy. And men when he grew up. And then he's going to crack Enigma and save the fucking world. Maybe the code is not flexible enough to imagine that something that looks like me and talks like me and thinks like me can be like it. In every way but one. Be it. Because I am it. We are it. It is all. It is all. Because I think that part of the problem is that when I go to church and I'm with my other friends, that we just run a program, right? And that program is called Mass. And at Mass, we all like each other. We like the darkies, and we like the Mexicans, and we like the Moroccans, and we like the Germans, and we like the Spanish, and we like the Argentinians. We just run Mass, and everybody's nice. And then when we go home, we run Grandpa George, who thought that all the niggas was crazy, right? Or you run whatever it is that got programmed into the people who told us stories, right? And they told you that a group of people were lazy and they wanted to take things and not give back anything. And a group of people were harder working and they brought home all the bacon. And that's why they kept all of it. And I'm afraid that if we think that the Mass program is going to save us and don't become aware that as a virus that's running on this other application that nobody even know what installed on this damn hard drive, but every time the operating system runs, the kernel picks it up and starts doing all of this computation, right? And you're trying to get the attention, right? You're trying to get the attention of the kernel and say, dude, this thing is chewing up space, man. Like, for real. And the kernel says, hello, can't you see? Busy? And you know that if that application continues to run, eventually there'll be no Mass, there'll be no mosque, there'll be no math, because there'll be no mothers, and then there'll be no us. The ape that understood, right? That's what we are. We are the ape that understood. We're going from the ape that thinks, right? Homo sapiens. To the ape that understood. The ape that understood. And when we become the ape that understood, and become the ape that understood, what would that be like? To go from sapiens, what is understanding in Greek? Cogito. No, cogito is think, right? I think, therefore understand. The ape that understood. The ape that understood that the Muslims were not all crazy, and certainly the Christians were not all nice. That even though there's nuance and shade in everything, sometimes shit is just effed up. Like Gaza. And that a group of apes got together and decided that this shouldn't ever happen again. But they didn't do it by erasing Israel from the map, which there have been days, right? But then you go and sit a little bit. And you breathe. And you try to see whether you can understand.